Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the Manhattan Projects. So this is a book released, I want to say probably about 6, maybe 7 or so years ago by Jonathon Hickman. I picked it up, probably was about 5 or 6 years ago when I was actually in America, and I thought I really wanted to read it. I knew that the Manhattan Project was about the scientists that actually came up with the atomic bomb, and looking into a lot of sort of nuclear weapons. And I thought this could be a really interesting read, especially done by Hickman himself, who likes to go into a lot of detail about things. So I thought this could be a really interesting one. And it has taken me so long to get around to actually finally reading it. But I read it while I was on holiday a couple of weeks ago, and I was blown away, completely blown away. Now, for anyone who's following me on my YouTube channel or the website that I write on, I do actually like a lot of things that mix sort of the popular culture with real events, and like to sort of mess about with the timeline a little bit, actually putting in some fantasy essentially into the real events. And this is one of those things. Initially I thought it was going to be something very realistic based upon the nuclear weapons or the atomic bombs. Then I started reading it, and it was clear that no, this is going to go into very kind of fantasy kind of area. And it is still done very, very well, and it doesn't pull its punches in regards to the people that are part of the Manhattan Project. You know, it does reference Oppenheimer, it does reference Albert Einstein, as well as some other scientists actually. And it, like I said, it does take the liberties with the truth, just a tad, but it's actually incredibly enjoyable. It's a comic that goes from the initial, like, we're going to gather some scientists, sort of latter half of sort of World War II, they want to develop some weapons to help them win the war. And it very quickly moves into aliens and alternate dimensions. And it's really interesting the way that Oppenheimer is actually portrayed in this, and it's actually quite amusing. He is just a completely awful human being in this, and don't get me wrong, I don't know what he was like as a person. Obviously I wasn't born then, I don't know too much about the person that you know, he was the I believe he was the lab director of the Manhattan Projects. So I'm not entirely sure what he was like. I mean, he has to have some sort of issues to be able to develop the nuclear bombs, but he is portrayed as a complete madman in this, and I actually kind of enjoy it. It's kind of interesting, to be honest, the way that he especially his interactions with Einstein. It's very, very funny. He's very blunt, and he's very to the point, and you know as the reader what he's thinking, because of things that have happened, you know, where he's actually killed his twin and taken his twin's place, that kind of stuff, and he wants to essentially rule the world. It's incredibly amazing. It's just so well written. I do have the second one here. I will actually, no, I'm going to show you a bit of the first one. I will show you a couple of I mean, just the artwork itself is just exceptional. I really, really do. I used to like the I can only describe it as like the computer generated art. I thought it was I preferred that kind of realistic look. But the more I've read, the more I actually really appreciate the sort of the slightly cartoony looks to things. I think it actually looks really, really good. And the colours in this are, I want to say it's Jordi Belair. Oh, have I got that right? No, it's taken me a while to... It is actually Jordi Belair. Jordi Belair has done a phenomenal job with the colours. He really, really has. I mean, it just looks incredibly extravagant and just so vibrant. It's just exceptional. It really is. And so, like I said, I was reading this on holiday, and I got to the end of the book, and I just thought, I can't leave it there. I needed to, and despite the fact that I wasn't even here, I actually ordered the second book, just so I could come back to it. I've already started reading it, and it still continues in the same kind of vein, and I'm really, really loving it. Now I know there's like 6 or 7 volumes already, so I've got a fair amount to catch up on, but I've really enjoyed this so far. Like I said, I love the fact that you've got the mix of historical events with like popular culture, and they've kind of pushed that together. I think it's incredibly interesting when writers do that, and it shows a real sort of wealth of talent when they can do it well. Because it's one thing to write a historical, accurate sort of representation of things, and it's another thing to come up with your own story. But when you're intertwining the two, and you have to stick to historical events, you've got that kind of constraints. It does limit you a little bit, so you've really got to do things incredibly well. And Hickman has been a writer that I've been aware of for quite some time now, and he just does a phenomenal job. I do think some of the things that he writes it's a bit too in depth. Oh god, I can't remember that book that he wrote. There was a book that he wrote that was about the 1920 stock crash, and it's incredibly heavy and just dense to read. Even some of his X-Men stuff is quite sort of dense as well. But this doesn't seem as dense, although it's tackling an issue that is historically dense, if you want to call it that. It doesn't feel that kind of way. It's not, you're not overloaded with words. There are instances in other books of his where you have complete pages of prose, and it does become a little bit overwhelming. You know, you want to really kind of get into that story, especially within a book or a graphic novel. So when you're coming across things like that, it can be a little bit kind of sort of taken aback a little bit. But with this, you know, even though it's tackling an issue or tackling a subject that can be classed as a massive issue, it never feels completely dense. There is always that slight light-hearted of it, you know, based on the fact that it doesn't stick completely to historical events. So I really enjoyed it for that. I really did. And I would completely recommend it for anyone who is interested in that kind of science aspect, anyone who likes the kind of scientific historical events that are played out within popular culture. You would probably like this. But yeah, guys, if you have read the Manhattan Projects, if you even have heard about it, please let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, because it really does help me out. And I'll see you all in the next video.